when we sent out the invitation, mentioned that this is going to be our last scheduled town hall for June. In the increasing weeks, we are going to focus more on this market week we're putting together. And before we get started, I've gotten a lot of questions about market week, so I wanted to ask Bethany Gilpatrick, our marketing director, to just take a few minutes and explain what market week is and how people can participate. So Bethany, you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. And I won't take up too much of your time, but basically we've just been working as your focus has continued to shift into reopening your stores. Our focus remains on you and how we can best support you all. So we've been kind of working behind the scenes on Market Week, which will be a virtual event taking place from July 20th through the 23rd. And essentially, you will be able to reconnect with brands kind of face-to-face in a virtual and safe environment. And all of the details on how it works and how to register can be found on our website. And I will add that the page to the chat so you can take a look and see how that will all work. And of course, if you have any questions, we are always here, and I will include my email so you can email me directly if, after you check it out, you have any questions about any parts of the process. Happy to help and answer any of your questions. So yeah, again, didn't want to take up too much of your time, but we're pretty excited and hope it will be helpful to all of you. So I will post that, and we can get going with today's town hall.
Okay, thanks, Bethany. So, and thank you to Kevin Donnellon for agreeing to be our speaker today. When I sent out the introductory copy on Tuesday for the invitation, Kevin said he cringed when I referred to him as a consultant. He said, he says he doesn't offer solutions like consultants. He teaches, coaches, and facilitates. And when I read that, I was cringing myself. I was like, "Ooh, that was bad by me." So I've known Kevin for a number of years. He has held big corporate positions, and much like myself, more entrepreneurial positions. And I think Kevin really is. He's a teacher, a coach, and a facilitator, and is now specializing in working with entrepreneurial organizations. And he really gets people to focus on and clarify what matters most to them. And then obviously, once they figure out what matters most, how do they make it happen? So having said all that, Kevin, I will turn it over to you. I know you have some slides you want to take us through today, and happy to answer some questions as well. So
Absolutely.
Kevin, the floor is yours.
Do I get any walk-on music or no?
You just got it. That's it.
Hey, thank you guys for making time today. You've heard so much about this is unprecedented times. You're probably as sick of that as the word pandemic or COVID-19, no doubt. But what's ironic about this, as hard as it is, it really can be an ideal time for the strong to not survive, to really thrive. And that's why the topic here is the first step to thrival. And I'm going to show you one strategy, a simple, really powerful tool in our EOS toolbox for doing that. So thank you. I'll go through this rather briskly, robustly, and then at the end I have plenty of time for questions and then an offer for all of you to take advantage of. So Mark said a little bit about this already. I don't offer solutions. I'm not a consultant. I'm a coach, a facilitator, and a teacher. I teach from a context. You're going to see that today. I'm a coach. I see the game in ways you probably don't even see yourself playing. I'm in Chicago, so with the Lance Dance from ESPN, you could see Phil Jackson doing certain things with Bulls games. I hope there are no Knicks or Pacer fans on the call, but if you are, great competition there. And I facilitate to bring out answers from people more than they can imagine. So part of that, I'm going to show you how I do that when working with people. If you guys are not familiar with EOS, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And I'm going to show you one tool, a tool that was created by Gino Wickman, who wrote a book called Traction, Get a Grip. We have about 5 other books in our Traction library. But what we try to do is get clients excelling at three things: vision, traction, and healthy. Vision means getting first the leadership team on the same page with where you're going, how you're going to get there. Traction, starting leadership team getting more accountable, more disciplined, more focused. And then healthy means advancing as a cohesive and functional team. Now, once the leadership team does it, that just migrates down in the organization. Eventually, everybody is rowing in the same direction. Everybody's more accountable. They're more disciplined. They're more focused, and they're advancing as a healthy team. And this really works. We've done this with 60,000 session days, with about 9,000 clients. EOS started about 12 years ago. Every time I go to one of our meetings, that number usually goes up by about 5,000 in terms of sessions, and clients usually about 500. The organization is now opening in London. We're in Australia. We have people in the Philippines, and I'm one of about 400 people that do this around the world. And my background, Mark alluded to that a little bit. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I started as a caddy at age 12, and I learned fast: you don't work hard, you don't hustle, you don't get paid too much. Before getting into the entrepreneurial world, went to Ohio State. I started at Procter & Gamble. I worked at major agencies in public relations in New York, in Chicago. I ran all the communications for Wilson Sporting Goods into the early 90s. And then I started my first agency where I worked with Gatorade, Sears, Land's End, Miller, a number of different Prince, a number of different brands at different levels. But a lot of the expertise I have is in sports and recreation. My first company was marketing services. I grew it up to about 3 million in revenue in about 5 years. And then before I'm doing what I'm talking about today, I was coaching small businesses, a lot of them in marketing and in the sports area, some public affairs firms. And I found out I really, really liked it, but I needed a framework, and that's how I found EOS. So that is my background. The frustrations that we typically deal with which are so amplified now: there is no profit, or it's inconsistent. Entrepreneurs feel like they have no control. They feel like they keep hitting the ceiling. They get to a spot, and a lot of times when I talk to entrepreneurs, it's we can't get past 3 million. We can't get back to 3 million. It's a roller coaster ride for them. And the things that we help them with when I teach them is how to break through that with some pretty simple tools. People struggles are huge. 80% of the problems that we find with entrepreneurial organizations basically are people driven. Excuse me. Other organizations, they've tried everything and nothing works. And now, the sad thing, and I'm just going to grab a cough drop here. The sad thing is the normal is gone. The normal is absolutely gone. Simon Sinek, who's written the book Starting with Wow Now, that'd be good to have, basically says, you know what, you got to think that things are not going back to normal. But, what was normal when Netflix, created streaming, or Apple created the phone, or any number of things back to Southwest Airlines with low-cost fares? It's encouraging to think that this is an environment where innovation can really happen. So these things are amplified now, but they're just headwinds. This is Gino Wickman, who I mentioned earlier, and Gino wrote the book Traction. He then wrote a book called Get a Grip. Traction is really a textbook on how to get a grip on your business, and then Get a Grip is an entrepreneurial fable. Gino, who basically ran his family company at age 25 and turned it around, was a founding member of EO Detroit, loves small business, absolutely adores it. He's one of the best in the world at doing this. And Gino has said this, which feels a little harsh: never waste a good crisis. Get calm, get clear, get confident, and it can be an opportunity to thrive. Companies that are running on EOS right now, they've made adaptations. They did it quickly. They did everything from what we call reversing an accountability chart taking people out. Some of them got PPA, they got other stimulus, but they really fell back on some of the tools I'm going to quickly review for you. And they feel like, hey, you know what? We've been on a diet, we've done a fitness program, we got this. And they're starting to realize. A woman I talked to just about a half an hour ago used to make a lot of acrylic products that are at retail, and acrylic that basically holds autographed basketballs and footballs and whatever memorabilia. They've pivoted into making desk shields. And she told me, do not call me again until end of July because she is so busy. And a great example of the successful pivot in somebody not letting a crisis basically get in the way of them succeeding. You know, I wish I'd known this guy. And, you know, everything that this guy does is an inspiration in terms of who he was, what he did, and how he did things. And I love at the end of it, because it's a little bit about what I'm going to talk about in a minute. It's self-satisfaction and a sense of achievement, values that should drive all of us in our business and throughout our life. You know, I was telling my daughters the other day, I was talking about Steve Prefontaine. I go, you know what? This guy was the Michael Jordan of running, or you should think about Michael Jordan was the Steve Prefontaine of basketball, because when you look him up and all of his records, and this is about what we're going to talk about here in a second, is changing your mindset, because you know, you don't want to be Eeyore in all of this and be unhappy and be resentful. You want to give it your best shot, but I think you need systems to do that. Now, I'm going to show you really, really quickly what I teach people in EOS. And it's based on a discovery that every entrepreneur is dealing with 136 issues at a time. That's a lot to manage. The other discovery is all of these issues just fall into place because they're within what I'm going to show you are the 6 key components of a business. And here's what they are: vision, people, data, issues, traction, and process. Vision, everybody knows where they're going and how you're going to get there. People, whether it's the jargon of rock stars, superstars, A players, I work with companies to get to the heart of a great employee. Data, you run your business on numbers, not egos, whims, or feelings that typically drive accountability and decision making in entrepreneurial companies. And when you get really clear at those top 3 things, all your issues come out, your problems, your imperfections. So we go to issues and we tell people, you better be really good at solving your issues when they arise, or you'll never be successful. They'll keep rearing their head, and the duct tape that you organize them in will eventually unravel. And then process, we teach people it is getting the right stuff done in your business the best way every time, and the same way every time. You get consistency, you get scalability, profitability. It's easier to manage, it's more fun. And then the last thing we talk about is traction. And most entrepreneurs' ideas or visions die on the vine because they don't have accountability, they don't have focus, they don't know how to basically turn an idea into something that's sustainable and that hums or whatever. We tell people that vision without traction is hallucination. That's one of my favorite lines, and it's so true. And now when I work with companies, I aim to get them to be 100% strong in each of these components, but I know that's utopia. It's impossible. We try to get to 80%, knowing most organizations operate at 20 to 40. So that is EOS model. What I'm going to talk about today is 8 questions. It's the first tool that we use under vision. And I'm going to go through these. At the end, I'll have take any kind of questions that you have. But in today's world, when I work with clients and they are struggling, we work with this, or we go back to what we've already created and we see where are we. And this is a compass for us. It's a roadmap. It's really the skeletal part of the business that gives us a great amount of confidence that we're on the right track, or the ability to quickly pivot and know how to do that in a really, really simple way. So I'm going to show you the 8 questions that make up what we call the Vision Traction Organizer. The first page, and I'm going to go through the 5 of these, it's vision. The back page is traction. And traction, if I didn't say it, it's how we bring vision down to the ground and execute on it on a daily basis. So the first question is core values. You guys are familiar with this. It's the essential set of characteristics that define who you are as an organization and what you want from the culture of your organization. It helps you hire, fire, review, reward. It makes sure everybody that you hire is not just like you, but represents the values of your organization, the kind of people that you love to be around, the kind of people, you don't have to want to have a beer with them, but when they're in the organization and they're working with you, it's a pleasure. When I work with companies, we work together to discover probably 3 to 7 values. I talk a lot in EOS that less is more. When you start getting more than 7 values, it's like there's a dilution going on. So we keep that tight. Typically, in a longer presentation, I would show you how we use this later. But as a preview, when we're looking at people and we analyze people, we put values across the top of a chart, the names of the people down the left side, and then we evaluate them. And when we're in sessions with people, we do that live, which freaks people out. But the essence of what we do is openness and honesty with everybody. We break down barriers, and that's one tool that we use to do that. The next question is core focus. Core focus, it's your sweet spot. It's been called vision statement, mission statement. Jim Collins, the famous organizational guru, basically calls it your headshot concept. But it's what you do well, and it's what you love to do. The problem, once you get that identified, is to stay laser focus on it, so you're not looking at shiny objects. It's a filter, basically, to avoid distractions. So that's core focus. 10-year target, it's the big, wonderful, energizing goal for the organization. It doesn't matter if it's 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, it's getting everybody on the same page. Here is where we're going. We're going to be this size business. We're going to have these number of locations. We're going to offer this customer experience. You pick them, but it's simple and everybody sees it as the North Star, basically. Next up is marketing strategy. And here's what it simply is. It's who you're talking to and what you want to say to them, and get everybody on the same page with that. And then it's just basically 4 elements. It's your target market. We call it the list. It's your 3 uniques. It's your proven process. It's your guarantee. And the target market, the geographic, the demographic, the psychographic profile of the ideal customer. Easy, right? Hard. You got to work that to understand that. You don't want to diverge from that. Hyper focused on that. Once you know who that target market is, it's just about your story. It's about the message that you tell the people. And we have an exercise called 3 uniques, the 3 things that differentiate you, the 3 things you do different and better than your competition and help you stand out. It's simple. And if you complicate it with expansive documents or whatever, you'll get what you deserve, which is complexity, which we try to weed out in an organization. Your proven process, whether this applies to this audience or not, the things I talk about, they're agnostic. They apply to everybody. How do you work with your customer from the time they're considering being with you, or a lifetime customer, someone who's coming in and buying from you every year, every time, every season? What happens from the time they come into your store all the way to the time they are coming there all the time with their family, with their friends? What's your proven process for doing that? And the guarantee, it's just your pledge or your promise. It reduces the fear of adoption and eliminates rejections or objections during the sales and marketing process. Now, here's what's great. What's beautiful about this document. When you answer those first 4 questions, here's what you have. You know who you are at your very core with your values. You know what you love to do and what you're great at with your core focus. You know where you're going with your 10-year target, and you know how you're going to get there with your marketing strategy. So then we moved to 3-year picture. And we got into a good conversation, Mark and I, and Neil Schwartz on Monday about this. You know, people are like, oh, what am I doing tomorrow? Okay, I'll show you what you're going to do tomorrow on a tool that we use a little bit later. But you've got to look out 3 years from now and think about, you know, you almost, when I counsel people using the advice of a business psychologist that I work with, you have to think about what you can't control and just put that off to the side. You got to focus on what you can control and use that as a basis for thinking about innovation, because you need to think, I am not only going to be thriving in 2020, in 2023, I'm going to blow the doors off this. So in a lot of cases with clients that I'm counseling now is, what are those hard decisions that you decided not to make before that we need to make now? And a lot of times those are around people. I can't tell you how many people who've used the value tool that I talked to you earlier to wake up and say, you know what, that person is toxic within the organization. And in 36 hours, they've made a decision that they probably pained over for 10. I'm talking to a client tomorrow. He finally let go of a 15-year employee, and the organization has just blossomed in that. So the 3-year picture, it is not a 50-page document. It's not a 3 to 5 year planning process. It's just basically getting everybody to visualize and crystallize in their mind what the organization needs to look like 3 short years from now, particularly if you're going to a 10-year target. It's 3 short years, but it's a chance to mobilize, because what happens if everybody sees the same thing from the same mind's eye, it gets done. It gets accomplished. The likelihood of that basically moves up. So 3-year picture, we're going to talk about revenue. We're going to predict profit, other measurables, which could be whether it's SEO, new website, new customer service stuff, whatever in there, that's another measurable. And what does it look like? We take a step back and say, okay, what's a clear picture? Are we going to be expanding? Are we going to focus on just a couple things within the organization? You get a better, clear picture on that. It's compelling, it's motivational, it's inspirational. And when you do that, your annual planning, it's really, really easy. Now, here is where the rubber meets the road. In a piece like this, if we were live, I basically flip this open. This is page 2. This is where we're talking about, okay, the vision is great. We need that. And we are 100% about team health and things that some people consider soft. But if the underbelly of your organization is not based on these things, rest assured the hard stuff, the numbers will never be met consistently. So we go to a 1-year plan. And just like we did in the 3-year picture, what's revenue, what's profit, what's other measurables, and then we talk about the goals for the year. And we don't talk about 23 goals. We don't do that, because if there are 23 goals, everything's important, nothing's important. We call them anywhere 3 to 7 dominoes, and the idea is you are going to underpredict and you are going to over deliver, and you're going to have some breathing room with your organization, because you're not going to be stifled by the heavy weight of 20 things. 3 to 7, I mentioned earlier, less is more, and we work on that. There's a high degree of satisfaction within the organization, a high amount of morale, because everybody feels like we're getting stuff done. And then I go to Rocks, which is the next tool, which really brings us down to the ground. Rocks, if you guys have read anything by Stephen Covey, Rocks are the big goals, the big priorities. And if you were filling up your day as a vessel or a jar and you wanted to get important stuff done, you better put your rocks in first. Because if you got pebbles, those are your daily to-dos, and sand are just interruptions, and water is just all that other stuff. So we emphasize, let's do work on a 90-day world, which basically means every 90 days, 3 to 7 goals for every member of the leadership team, 3 to 7 goals for the company, and a leader will take some of those company goals as his or hers to get done. And what this does is it keeps focus. We talk in our meetings about procrastination and what that means, and a procrastination model that basically says after 90 days, people lose focus. They lose attention. And typically if we were looking at a slide, you'd show in a 90-day period of time, typically a low level of activity that spikes up when 90 days starts to be on the horizon. And never has people invested good thinking time because they rush to the end of 90 days to get something done. The reverse model of that is a high level of activity in the beginning that drops off. So 90 days, like most major corporations, they report earnings on a 90-day basis. We don't have to worry about that, but we want to take a disciplined tool like that of rocks, 90 days. And when you meet, God, I wish I could show you all the beautiful tools here. When we meet on a weekly basis, rocks are on or off track, and we're working on those things every week. So we love that. We love our rocks, as you could tell. Earlier, I may have alluded to the fact, and if I didn't, I apologize, that when you're strong in people, vision, and data, your organization is transparent. It's just lucid. When I talked about people being 80% of the struggles, you can think that, oh my goodness, when we get strong and clear up there, whether it's wrong data, whether the vision is not right, or whether we got people issues, all of a sudden, your obstacles, your issues, your barriers are going to come to the fore. You're open and honest, and you get them down on a list. When we teach deeper into issues, we teach a culture with people that says everybody in the organization is comfortable raising their hand in their issue, getting down on a list somewhere in the organization for being solved. So that's it. Whether it's core values, core focus, the 10-year target, your marketing strategy, 3-year picture, annual plan, your rocks, your issues, this document is fantastic. When I work with people, the first thing I do for free is a 90-minute meeting where I take them through all the tools of EOS. And I hand them this and say, take this. If you don't hire me, you got to use this. There are any number of free tools that I give people that are like that. This just shows you those tools within the toolbox. We just talked about 8 questions. One of the other things under vision is called shared by all, which means this vision needs to go out of the room where the leadership team is and be shared with everybody in the organization in quarterly meetings and updates. And I love all of the EOS. I could talk forever. We try to get people to 100%. We know 80% is attainable. And every slide, every presentation you see nowadays, if you don't, you shouldn't. You should see something by Churchill, right? So, it's all about effort, and it's about unlocking your potential. And if I don't have you running through a wall right now, then I didn't do my job effectively. But that's the tool. Vision, traction, and vision and traction together make sure you get the results of what you want. So I don't know how fast that was, but was that 30 minutes or whatever?
30 minutes on the nose. So
I
thank
am
you.
open for any questions.
So, Kevin, you work with a number of entrepreneurial businesses, and I assume a lot of them are in the same boat as the people on this phone call. What are you finding right now are the key issues? And, I think sort of the little title we came up with your speech was Survival to Thrival. I think, again, everybody on this call has made it through the survival. What are a couple pieces of advice or quick hits that you can offer to make sure that everyone gets from survival to thrival?
if on those 8 questions, core focus, it would be key right now. And the 3-year picture, I had another slide up here that I took out. The idea of you cannot be afraid of what the future is going to be, and you got to be prepared to address that as you open your doors every single day. And Mark, you and I were talking about this before. If you're not willing to think forward enough to 3 years, you should hand your keys to your landlord and go figure out something else to do. But your business is going to be re-engineered. I live in Chicago. I live in Lincoln Park. Fleet Feet is in the neighborhood, and Fleet Feet is a community thing. And I'm sure all of you have that. This just isn't a place to come buy things that you participate in sport. This is a place where people commune. And right now, everything in business in the essence is content and community. And reinforcing that community is really good. But I would say, don't just think of yourself as a place to buy, because I have probably bought $2,000 worth of goods on Amazon during all this. A lot of toilet paper or whatever. There are places to buy that have nothing to do with bricks and mortar, but it is a differentiator that you have a place where people can come. Now, coming is different than it was before, and figuring that out. If you're Stuart Leonard as a comparison, up in Connecticut, you're not sampling anymore. Neither is Costco. But one of the things that I would do, Mark, is a rock would be, okay, guys, what does this look like? And somebody's in charge for what is the re-envisioning of our experience. And the group would be part of that too. So I wouldn't make it an annual plan. I'd make it a 90-day rock. That was a long answer to your question.
Okay. Yeah, because those are sort of the things we've talked about. Obviously, community is the core of everyone on this call, but we've had other calls where we've actually talked about what does your store physically look like, what does the fitting process look like, and have really talked about that quite a bit. Does anyone else have? Go ahead.
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Content community, and then, which I think probably many of these people are, is the expert, the authority in your market. I mean, I have a Dick's Sporting Goods close to me. I don't want to cast any aspersions on Dick's, but Dick's is just a place I go to take something off a shelf. What I've really wanted to invest in, and I don't run, I walk and whatever. I go to Fleet Feet, and my kids go there. Anyway.
Does anyone in the group have any questions for Kevin that they want to either just raise their hand and ask or submit in the chat?
Crickets.
Yes, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've been doing these calls since we did the first one like April 1st. So I think everyone enjoys coming, but I think maybe everyone's a little tired of participating and happy to have their stores open.
To be working again.
So,
yeah.
Well, Christina and Bethany, before we wrap it up, anything else that you guys want to talk about? I know Kevin, you had before we let you go, you had an offer you wanted to make to everybody.
Yeah. Can you guys see this? This is an ebook that I'd be happy to send anybody who sends me a email. And Mark, do you want to get that to them? Can somebody put that in the chat?
Yeah, let me put your email out in the chat. That's a good idea. And people could always reach out to Christina or me as well. But
Sure.
I'll put your email out in the chat there.
Okay.
And what is that book, Kevin?
It's an ebook. It's called Decide. The one common denominator of all great leaders. And some of the tools that I've alluded to today are covered, but it's more for, a person who's an owner, a leader, the kind of things that he or she should be thinking about, including one of my favorites, the 10 commandments of good decision making. And number 2 of those is thou shalt not be a weenie.
Well, words to live by.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. I just got your email out to everybody out there. So,
Fantastic.
well, Kevin, thank you for
You're welcome.
thanks for getting on the call with everyone today. Hopefully
Happy
it
to
was
do it.
valuable. And everyone who's been on today's call and all the other calls, we really appreciate it. I guess Bethany and Christina will be in touch with their more information about the market week. And over the next couple of weeks, obviously, any questions, any of you can reach out to me or Christina or Bethany.
Hey, Mark, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
This is an open offer for anybody. One of our values in EOS is help first. And we have gone out in a frontal assault with our clients and any prospects to say, if you want to talk for an hour and we can identify, discuss, and solve your top 3 issues, I will get on the phone with anybody for free, no strings attached. And if they want to do it once, if they want to do it twice or 3 times, and let me tell you, there's so many experts in our family, BOS, that have done that for me. It's about just helping. It's rising all of us, up. And that's an open offer. So people want this book, do that. And if they want to schedule time, I'm happy to do this because I'm absolutely brilliant on Thursdays.
Good to know. We all have our good days. Good to know
Right.
Thursday is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
Saturday and Sunday are mine. It's unfortunate that you guys don't get to see me on my best days. But well, again, Kevin, thank you. Thanks
You're
for everyone.
welcome, Mark. Thank you,
Yeah,
everybody.
thanks everyone.
For being on this call.
Nice
And
seeing your faces.
yes, look forward to seeing you in person at some point soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.